I am a black man. Well, technically, I'm only half black, but to the untrained eye, I am a black man, and I am treated accordingly. Now, before you say, oh, Jordan, you're just another American who's obsessed with race, obsessed with color, I am not. I am not obsessed with race or color. However, there are very many people out there who are obsessed with race and color, and those people make it their mission to make people of color's lives very, very miserable. And generally, these people tend to coalesce in the same areas as one another. And in this video, I want to explore whether or not the Netherlands is one of those areas these people tend to coalesce in. And I'm not going to do this through the use of statistics. I'm going to do this through the use of my own personal anecdote as an African American or African American man who's been living in the Netherlands for just under a year. And I'm gonna do it in the rain. Okay, that's how much I want to bring you this content, is that I am out here in the rain and cold talking about my life as a black man in the Netherlands. Now, the first thing that I've noticed about being a black man in the Netherlands is that there are certain things that were accessible, or not even just accessible, but the norm back home, that aren't nearly as normal or accessible here in the Netherlands. Now, the biggest example that I have of this is anything pertaining to hair, barbershops, braiding salons, etc. I've noticed that these sort of institutions are not as prevalent, not as accessible here in the Netherlands. Now, by the way, disclaimer, I don't know if you can tell, but I don't live in Amsterdam, I don't live in Rotterdam, I don't live in a big city whatsoever. I don't even live near a big city. I live in the suburbs. I'm talking about if I just walked maybe 5 minutes in the other direction from where I'm walking now, I would literally be at a farm, and that is no exaggeration. Cows, horses, all of that. So take everything that I say from this point forward in that context, that I don't live in a big city, so your experience living in a big city might be different than mine. Now, braiding salons. When I moved to the Netherlands, if you weren't watching my channel at that time, I had grown my hair out. As a matter of fact, I was literally working with a hair growth company because I wanted to grow my hair out as quickly as possible so that when I got to the Netherlands, I could go to a braiding salon and get my hair braided. It's literally the only reason why I grew my hair out. Now, as you can tell, I don't have braids. I don't have braids, and my hair is not that long anymore. And the reason why is because what I quickly realized upon landing here is that it is very difficult, at least in the area that I live in, to find a place to get this sort of service done. Now, of course, a lot of that has to do with supply and demand. I mean, as I go throughout this video, you're probably not going to see too many people out and about because, again, it's raining and it's cold. But the people that you do see in the background of this video are predominantly white. And so in a city like this, it wouldn't make much logical business sense to have a braiding salon. You're just not going to have the demand that you need to justify the supply of that service. And so what I ended up having to do in order to get my hair braided, because I did eventually find a hair braider, I had to get on not just one, but 2 separate buses for a total of, I want to say, 45-ish minutes, a 45-ish minute bus ride across 2 separate buses to go to Tilburg, which is the nearest quote-unquote big city here in the Netherlands. And from there, I had to walk, I think, another 10 or 15 minutes, and then I was at the braiding salon, and I could then get my hair braided. As you can imagine, that didn't last very long. That did not last very long at all. I think I got my hair braided a total of 2 times. And then on top of that, like I was saying earlier, and as you can see, it's raining. It rains a lot here. And if you didn't know, you can't really get your braids wet. It's an impractical hairstyle to have here. But I didn't really take that into consideration before I moved here. Anyways, I would literally take these 2 buses to Tilburg and get my hair braided, and then take the same 2 buses back. And so whatever the cost of the braiding was, I want to say it was 50 or 60 euros. Tack on another maybe 10 euros, something like that. 10, 15 euros for those bus rides, and an hour and a half of my time. Yeah, that wasn't happening. So I definitely found that to be really, really inconvenient, and I looked for as many alternatives as I possibly could. Back home, where I'm from, and I'm not from a big city back home either. I don't come from Dallas proper. I come from a suburb that's actually kind of similar to this one. Back home, I never had an issue with finding a braider. I hope this person doesn't hit me on this bike, because then it's going to be a really bad day. But I never had an issue with finding a hair braider back home. And of course, the demographics were a little bit different, but I would say proportionally speaking, there are still black people here. Okay, there are definitely still black people here, and I'll touch more on the different subcultures of black people here later on in this video. But proportionally speaking, there were probably 4 or 5 or 6 braiding salons in the city that I grew up in, and the city was not predominantly black by any means. It was still a predominantly white and Hispanic city. So I think maybe just culturally, it's not as normal to get braids here. I mean, back home, a lot of young men, a lot of young black men are rocking 2-strand twists, things of that nature. From what I remember, maybe it's different now, but when I left, that's what a lot of young black men were rocking. But here, you just don't really see that very often. So again, it's probably just a matter of supply and demand more than it is race as a whole. But I definitely found that to be a little bit frustrating, that was literally the only way I could get my hair braided. I even looked for people who could come to me and do it that way. I found one person, I think, but she only did it for women. So yeah, that was a bit of a struggle, but I ended up just surrendering, finding a barber shop, and going with the fade that you see now. And on that note, okay, barbershops. I couldn't find a black barbershop. Maybe there are black barbershops in Tilburg. I'm sure there are black barbershops in the bigger cities in Amsterdam and Rotterdam, maybe Utrecht, places like that. But here, there are no black barbershops. It's just not a thing. You don't really see it. However, I will say, the barbershop that I did find, these folks can cut hair. All right, my fade isn't fresh anymore. I got my hair cut maybe a week and a half ago or so, but these folks know how to cut hair. They can cut hair as well as any black barber that I ever went to. And that's no shade to those black barbers that I went to. These folks can just cut hair very, very well. But I will say that the atmosphere in these non-black barbershops is very different from the black barbershops that I went to back home. That's not to say that it's worse or better, it's just different. They don't have the TV where they're running reruns of old basketball games or Sports Center with the volume off, and they're just listening to music and talking about things that, well, black people tend to talk about. The atmosphere is just completely different. And I mean, personally, I'm an introvert, so I don't really interact with people in the barbershop that much anyways, but definitely a different vibe. And this is my first time as an adult, at least, being in a barbershop that is not predominantly black. So it's definitely been a pretty jarring experience. But I'm saying all of this to say that there aren't any braiding salons in this city, and there aren't any black barbershops. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of the kind of city that I'm living in, that these basic facilities are inaccessible to me. Now, as far as black people overall, what are the demographics like as far as black people go here in the Netherlands? Because there are black people. Like I said, you're probably not going to see too many of them in this video. You might not see any of them in this video other than me, but they are here. They are here, they are out and about, and they are different. They are different from me. What do I mean by that? Well, from a race standpoint, doesn't matter where you come from. You can come from Jamaica, you can come from Senegal, or you can come from Texas, and you're black. Okay, if you're black, you're black. But ethnically, you're not the same. Okay, you are completely different. It's just like a white person from the Netherlands compared to a white person from Texas. Two completely different things. Take it from me. Okay, I lived in both places. Take it from me. Here in the Netherlands, at least where I live, you're not going to find a whole lot of African American expats. They do exist. I know they exist because I've seen other people's channels who document their experiences as African American men living in the Netherlands. But as far as where I live, in this smaller city, this smaller area, you're not going to see a whole lot of African American people. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong about this, but I wouldn't be surprised, at least, if I was the only African American person in this whole entire vicinity. And if I'm not the only African American, I'm sure I'm the only half African American, half Filipino person from America in this vicinity. The black people here, by and large, are from a few different places. And those places, to my knowledge, are Suriname. And when I say they're from these places, that could also mean that they are from these places in terms of heritage. So their parents, etc. But maybe they're Dutch. They grew up here in the Netherlands. But by and large, their heritage comes from Suriname. It comes from the ABC Islands. I still cannot pronounce them. But the ABC Islands, which aren't all that far from Suriname. And I want to say East Africa. I don't know exactly which country. Maybe Ethiopia or Eritrea. But I know it's one of those countries because those people have a very distinct look to them. You can tell that it's a different kind of black, if that makes sense. If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But as a black person, I can definitely tell the difference. So those are the majority of the black people that you will encounter here in the Netherlands. And I will say that the black people here are much more in tune and in touch with their heritage than your average African American, for pretty obvious reasons. I mean, I don't know the full history of the Netherlands, if slavery was ever a thing, but I do know that in the US it was a thing. And someone like me, I can't even trace my heritage back. I don't even know what part of Africa my lineage comes from. Literally don't know. And that is also the case with most African Americans, whereas most white people from the US, they can just go on one of those ancestry websites and see that, oh, my ancestors come from the Netherlands, my ancestors come from the UK, my ancestors come from the Czech Republic, etc. So because of that, as a direct consequence, here in the Netherlands, you see a much richer culture, I would say. You see a much richer black culture, a richer collection of black cultures than you would back home. And that's pretty nice. I will say it's pretty nice to see all of these different cultures in maybe not their purest forms, but in much purer forms than what you would encounter back home in the US. Now, beating around the bush here, the $1,000,000 question: is the Netherlands a racist place to be? Are the people here racist? From my experience and my observations of other people's experiences, my answer is a resounding no. My answer is an absolutely complete, unequivocal no. It is not a racist place to be. And look, if you're a person of color and you've experienced racism in the Netherlands, then hey, I feel for you. I'm not here to invalidate your experiences. What I am here to say is that you're the exception, not the rule. This is not a racist place. The Netherlands is literally one of the most progressive countries on the planet. Literally. Pretty sure that it was one of the first countries to make weed legal, and also to legalize gay marriage, things of that nature, things that the US is still coming around to right now, to this day. So the Netherlands is not a racist place. I will say I have seen some xenophobia, which pertains more to ethnicity than it does race. So it's more about where people come from, what country they come from, rather than the color of their skin. Not that that's any better, but it's a different discussion for a different day. And also, I've gotten a few comments of people saying that I should go back to America, go back to Africa, whatever. But I mean, those people don't represent the Netherlands. Those people have the IQ of a squirrel. I mean, you can't listen to people like that, because those people, if they saw me filming this video right now, would never come up to me and actually say that. So people like that, you can't take that as an indication of what this whole country is like. This country is a very warm and welcoming place to anybody who is willing to integrate themselves into the structure of Dutch society. Black, white, purple, it literally doesn't matter.